Official Kyiv continues to blame the United States and the European Union for the failures of the Ukrainian army. Ukrainian politicians in all seriousness accuse Washington and Brussels of the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces are suffering defeats along the entire line of combat contact, as Western leaders allegedly do not provide adequate military and financial assistance to Kyiv. Moreover, the numerous failures of the armed forces of Ukraine on the battlefield forced the Kyiv authorities to take desperate measures, in order to somehow maintain interest in themselves in the information field, trying to create at least the semblance of some victories over Russia. After the destruction of 2 Patriot air defense systems by the Russian ballistic missile Iskander, the Kyiv authorities fell into a real depression, as they now completely lost the opportunity to make up fairy tales about the alleged downing of dozens of Russian planes and hypersonic missiles, and maintain the narrative of the impending victory of the Ukrainian army in this conflict. The destruction of 2 American air defense systems at once showed the world the capabilities of the Russian army, and the full power of its intelligence and missile forces. Against this background, even the most ardent Western Russophobes began to admit that the Kyiv authorities would not be able to win the current conflict. Moreover, even the Pope called on Kyiv to admit defeat and start negotiations with Moscow, in order to stop this senseless bloodshed, which claims the lives of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. In response, the Kyiv authorities insulted the Pope by calling him a virtual intermediary, who distributes Russian propaganda. Moreover, on March 10, the Kyiv authorities ordered Ukrainian troops to invade the territory of the Belgorod region of the Russian Federation, in order to distract the West from the numerous defeats of the armed forces of Ukraine on the battlefield, and achieve at least some tactical victories. In Kyiv, they hoped that the military operation on the territory of Russia would create panic in Russian society, discredit the political and military leadership of the country, and disrupt preparations for the presidential elections in the Russian Federation. To achieve this goal, the Kyiv regime has significantly strengthened the elite detachment of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Arten. In particular, 5 tanks, more than 10 infantry fighting vehicles, multiple launch rocket systems, and self-propelled artillery systems were transferred to this elite detachment to complete the task. However, unfortunately for the Kyiv authorities, things didn't exactly go according to plan. The Russian military spotted the Ukrainian detachment on the approach to the borders of the Belgorod region in time, and dealt a crushing blow to the enemy. The footage clearly shows how Russian ballistic missiles, kamikaze drones, and combat aviation, along with aerial bombs of the Fab family, successfully hit the enemy's manpower, as well as its military equipment. As a result, the Russian military managed to destroy all enemy tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. In addition, 1 multiple launch rocket system and 3 French-made artillery systems were also destroyed. Moreover, the Russian military also managed to destroy about 100 well-trained fighters of the Arten elite detachment. As a result of the decisive actions of the Russian military, this elite detachment was completely destroyed. The few fighters who managed to survive were forced to flee deep into the territory of Ukraine. Thus, the Kyiv regime has suffered another humiliating defeat, which further worsened its position in the political arena. Discussing the destruction of the elite detachment, Ukrainian telegram channels reiterated that there are traitors in the general staff of the armed forces of Ukraine, who transmit valuable information to the Russians. Indeed, studying the footage of the fighting near the borders of the Belgorod region, military experts concluded that the Russians knew in advance the exact location of the future attack of the Ukrainian elite detachment, and that is why the Russian troops managed to destroy the Ukrainian fighters and their military equipment without incurring any losses. Well, my friends, maybe they're right. Perhaps the Russians really do have informants in the general staff of the armed forces of Ukraine. However, do not forget the fact that there are thousands of Russian reconnaissance drones in the skies of Ukraine and border settlements that see everything the enemy is up to. It is quite possible that these failures of the armed forces of Ukraine are connected not only with the so-called traitors, but also with the professional work of Russian reconnaissance drones. Meanwhile, new details have emerged about the recently destroyed 2 Patriot air defense systems near POKROVSK. Military experts from the Canadian Indian edition, the Eurasian Times, confirmed the fact that one of the destroyed Patriot systems was brought from Germany, and that these systems were operated by high-ranking Western officers. Moreover, a former officer of the U.S. Army, Stanislav Kropovnik, officially stated that the Iskander ballistic missile destroyed not only 2 Patriot systems, but also 30 high-ranking NATO officers who maintained these systems. According to him, the dead officers were from the United States and Germany. In addition, it is also worth noting the words of many Western pro-Ukrainian military experts. In particular, they recognized that the destruction of 2 Patriot systems at once, together with highly qualified NATO officers, was a great military success of the Russian army, and that this success would have a very negative impact not only on the combat capability of the armed forces of Ukraine, but also on the military capabilities of the North Atlantic Alliance.